I'm gonna be completely honest. I never grew up with The Amazing World of Gumball, even when it premiered 10 years ago. I did watch the most of the first season, while the rest, it really didn't catch my interest. Like I said in my Cartoon Crisis 2 review and my Christmas reviews last year involving The Amazing World of Gumball, I tried to easily get into the characters, but at the same time, it's really not my sort of thing to binge watch every now and then. But since I've learned that some of the people who worked on The Amazing World of Gumball are working on Elliot from Earth, Cartoon Network's next newest cartoon, it actually caught my interest. Because of one, Cartoon Network really doesn't have a lot of shows that much to keep us occupied. I mean, there's Summer Camp Island, Craig of the Creek, and this show. And I'm not even gonna mention Teen Titans Go, because at this point, the fact that that show is the longest than Steven Universe, and soon to be Adventure Time and Regular Show, which I'm pretty sure it's always surpassed Regular Show, it's probably going to keep going regardless. And the fact that it's getting a spin-off, which is a spin-off of a spin-off, I'm really... let's just say that Teen Titans Go is the next SpongeBob in Cartoon Network. But anyways, let me go discuss of what really caught my interest from Elliot from Earth. Since I'm going to be reviewing the first episode Wednesday, which is a 4-part episode, I need to address of what I actually enjoyed from this episode the most, or special, whatever you prefer. And that's the two main characters, Elliot and Frankie. And as for Mo, I'll go talk about him later. Usually when it comes to character arcs, when they're developed from the very beginning, I consider Elliot like Steven from Steven Universe, but the difference is he has no powers, and his mom, she really is trying to convince everyone that there's extraterrestrium from outer space, but no one is buying it. I honestly felt mostly disappointed that him and his mother just aren't really getting attention because of how they're into different things that didn't caught everyone else's attention, which I can actually relate to because I was into so many different things and then people just aren't really into those kinds of things. I will discuss about that, but this isn't about me, this is about Elliot from Earth and its Wednesday episode. Unlike The Amazing World of Gumball, well, the entire world is completely full of amazement, this show's world building isn't really anything special on Earth, which is the complete opposite, and I actually found that a really good twist compared to The Amazing World of Gumball. The fact that Frankie just trying to convince everyone that extraterrestrium actually exists in outer space is honestly a difficult way. It's honestly something that actually happens to other people when they're trying to have further proof, but at the same time they just couldn't. It's moments like these that you can actually relate to these characters a little bit more when you can really see more of their development. The pacing in part 1, 2, 3, and 4 are spot on, which is something that can easily make this show have more of an identity of its own. While The Amazing World of Gumball had different kinds of animations, this is only flash animation. And for how much that we can see of how they put the flash animation into good use, I'm actually kind of convinced that this animation is better than My Little Pony Generation 4. And I'm not exaggerating once we get into more of this premiere. When Elliot and his mother get teleported because of a meteor that they have back at home, which is on Earth, they get into a swamp planet, which they meet another character and also other creatures that are completely different from the creatures that they saw back at home. Elliot's favorite toy is a dinosaur, and when they came across a character who is a dinosaur, he doesn't get the idea that he is a dinosaur, and the planet that he's in, it doesn't have a name. I can give this character a lot more credit for its origin story, but on the other hand, I still can't get over the fact that this is the same character that we've seen so many times. Well, they make so many mistakes, and they're just not capable into taking care of themselves. Granted, Mo isn't as terrible as I thought after watching this premiere, but on the other hand, this is the premiere. By the time of this recording, I've only watched this episode and not the further episodes after that. So just keep this in mind that Mo's character development might change and I might get used to him. But as for his debut in this premiere, it is special, but on the other hand, it's not spectacular. But I will say that the second part still contributes the running time and the major plot points of the premiere of this show. For one thing, Elliot and Frankie are in a stranded planet, and considering that they haven't met extraterrestrial life form yet, this is basically the beginning of the whole galaxy adventure. If you really ask me of how much that this show is trying to have some kind of chapter story, with the premiere of this being the first chapter while the rest is the remaining chapters, they really know how to make this chapter way more important when it comes to of how Elliot and Frankie are getting used to the world that they're in instead of the planet that they spend most of their life on, which is on Earth. With this title being Elliot from Earth, it actually really shows. Getting into the third part of this premiere, since that they need to find Mo, who is hiding, and they also need to go through the scanner system in order to be transported to the city where all the aliens are at, the third part really leads to a huge introduction to what has yet to come in the fourth part of Wednesday. And I gotta say, I really think that this is the type of story that I actually enjoy when it comes to introducing new characters. While Elliot and Frankie are trying to recruit Mo, who's been running away in the station, they also need to go through a scanning system while also wearing a disguise to be like the other aliens. Since this also leads to the characters going to the futuristic city itself, I have to admit that this is pretty much the funniest out of any of the parts from this premiere. I'm pretty sure that for how much they're trying to make a straightforward plot for having the characters to be on the planet while also making the pacing of each episode perfectly accurate, I'm pretty sure that they probably want to add jokes along the way. I can say that the first part introduces the characters' lives in the worlds that they're in, and the second part involves them being on a planet that is completely different than their planets, while also meeting a character that's a dinosaur who doesn't know he's actually a dinosaur. And the fourth part, well, I'm gonna be saving that once I'm done talking about this part. As for the humor in this, it's way similar to The Amazing World of Gumball, but on the other hand, it still has unique jokes and also way humorous moments, because in this scene, we actually get to see that Kane has two butts, because the other person just can't be able to speak whatsoever, while the person in the torso part does. It really makes sense, and I gotta admit that even though that Kane might not appear as the series continues, he still had great moments in this third part of this premiere. Not to mention that Elliot, Frankie, and Mo thought that this entire room was a Waller room, only when Kane told them that it was actually the washroom. The style and animation in this is just brilliant and also done right for comedic purposes. I really love it. I would talk about more on the animation, but I'm gonna get to that way later. For now, let's enter to the fourth and final part of this premiere. With Elliot, Frankie, and Mo finally arrived to this futuristic city, they still need to find a place to stay since that Mo can't go back to his home planet, and Elliot and Frankie's home on Earth was the RV, which is the only thing that they had on Earth. They come across an old lady who has a domicile, which whole place is filled with ice statues. A ton of ice statues. They instantly question what is really going on with these statues being close to perfection, but when Elliot and Frankie figure out that it was the old lady that turned everyone into statues, she turned Elliot and Frankie into statues. Frankie also told Mo not to touch anything, but he can still look at the statues. To which Mo does the opposite. He doesn't look, but he can touch them. You know, it's honestly difficult to take this character seriously, but the more episodes I watch this, the more I have to get used to him, regardless of how much I don't like these type of characters. But I have to admit, the way he did this charade against the old lady who is about to turn him into an ice statue is really clever, especially that he actually saved the day in the final part of this premiere. And when they decide to go back to the previous alpha by talking to the other alien to find another home, the alien takes them to one of the domiciles where they can make their imagination come true and make their own apartment their own domicile without doing anything. For how this episode ends off and to kickstart this entire show, it really did a good job. And I have to admit that even though I may prefer the first two parts than the third or fourth part, I consider the fourth part my third favorite out of the four parts of this premiere. When it comes to the premieres of cartoons, this isn't one of my favorites, but it's really underrated. Where we get to see the development of Frankie and Elliot and how they managed to get teleported to another planet only to be transported to a futuristic city afterwards. This premiere really had it all. And considering that each episode is 11 minutes and this is yet another show that is mainly catered to 11 minutes instead of 22 minutes, this is honestly a good way to give us a glimpse of what this show is going to be as this show continues. The fourth part of this premiere is where we get to see the intro where it advertises the cartoon itself, and I have to admit, it really does a good job. When it comes to other intros from other cartoons, they do the job very well and they're really catchy. And even though that this intro isn't catchy to sing the lyrics, it still proves its advertising correctly. That the fact that every single alien besides Elliot and Frankie are not from Earth. You know, at this point, I'm actually looking forward to seeing Frankie and Elliot returning back to Earth while also bringing some aliens along so that Frankie can prove her peers wrong that extraterrestrial life forms do exist outside of Earth. Speaking of the intro, I have to admit that the music is really good, to the point that it actually surpasses the music from The Amazing World of Gumball. Granted, I didn't watch all the episodes, but considering that some of the people who worked on the show did work on The Amazing World of Gumball, actually improved when it comes to its style. And that is saying something for how much that this show and The Amazing World of Gumball are totally related when it comes to its animation and mostly its humor. And even though that I did not like the characters a lot from The Amazing World of Gumball, I can give this show the credit for making its characters really memorable. Well, aside from Mo, but then again, premiere, gonna watch more episodes and now might get used to him. But anyway, Elliot and Frankie in this, like I've mentioned before, I can easily understand that they're just not really into most of the people that they're around on Earth. And when they get to the futuristic city from the other side of the galaxy, it really shows that they do have a place in the environment that they're actually used to. Granted, in the fourth part, they're having a difficult time like eating the food that they didn't like, but with this being the first episode or premiere of to kickstart this entire show, they're probably going to learn a lot of lessons while also meeting other characters so that they can actually get used to the life in this futuristic world compared to Earth. And I know I might be wrong on this one, but since that Frankie, Mo, and Elliot are going to spend most of their lives in the futuristic city, they might be able to go to different places all over the galaxy if that's a possibility. I didn't watch all the episodes, but I did read one of the synopsis from the other episodes that Elliot is transported into a different world while Mo and Frankie are not. Like I said, it is mostly debatable on what these characters are going to do after the premiere of this episode, but if there's one thing that I'm pretty sure of what this show might be able to do, is probably increase the world building involving the characters around Elliot and Frankie. Let me just tell you that the aliens in this show are a lot more unique, and they're on the same levels of character designs of the Amazing World of Gumball. So that's something I can give this show credit once I'm into watching more episodes of this show in the future. As for the animation, I can't say gorgeous, because if this was actually on the big screen, the budget would have been increased. But it's really good and really colorful. The color palette in this is just way more than what the Amazing World of Gumball did. Granted, that show had different animation styles, but with this being the main focus of Flash animation, this is why I'm convinced that this animation is better than My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And since that this show has the same animators from the Amazing World of Gumball, I am really looking forward to what the world building of this show is going to be, to the point that it's going to improve. Flash animation has improved so much since it was developed in the early 2000s or the late 1990s, but at the same time I don't know much about Flash animation history. But all I can say is that when it comes to the 2010s decades and the animation it has to offer, even from cartoons, this would definitely be one of my favorites. Overall, I really enjoyed this premiere from Elliot from Earth. And I can understand that there's so many other cartoons I have to keep up on, but considering that this actually caught my interest, I might consider on making more reviews from this, just like Euphemia and The Owl House. But at the same time, old shows like Steven Universe, We Bare Bears, along with other cartoons that I grew up with in the 2000s, it would take time for me to review another episode, but I might be able to think of something once we get into the new year or sometime at the end of this year. But who knows? I give Wednesday an 8 out of 10.
Let's get this started again.